This is the BS4 podcast, and I'm your host, Bria Villa. Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of the BS4 podcast. I'm your host, Bria Villa, and today's episode is different. I am doing this completely on my own, one-woman show. I usually have a production team who helps out with the visuals for this podcast. And every episode I've ever dropped, I've always had multiple cameras. But today's episode, I am doing impromptu. So I originally had an episode that I wanted to release in the first week of the new year. And today is January 1st, 2025. And I felt inspired to make a new episode, but didn't have the production team, didn't have the whole setup. And I was like, well, that shouldn't stop me from sharing this message and doing what I feel inspired to do. And so I have my own camera that I set up with audio, and it's not going to look like the rest of my podcast. It's definitely going to be more intimate. It's going to sound the exact same for those of you who are listening, but for those of you who are watching, it's a little bit of a different look this time. But I'm excited about it, which kind of just shows the mindset that I have going into 2025. So first and foremost, if you were here, if you were listening, if you were watching, Happy New Year. I am so excited to be in 2025 because I don't know about y'all, but 2024 dragged me a little bit. It dragged me a little bit. A lot of lessons were learned through the dragging. A lot of lessons were learned. 2024 was a year. A year. For sure. It was the year of growth for me. It was a year of proving myself to myself. It was a year of self-establishment. It was a very big pivot year for me. And I don't want to spend too much time harping on the past, but the reality is you can't really know where you're going if you don't know where you've come from. That being said, today's episode is really for me to be real with y'all and share with you what I faced in 2024, what I learned from the adversity I faced, the good that came out of it. I want to share ways to set goals for 2025 for you to actually accomplish your goals and set really strong intentions going into the new year. So I'm going to give you a template. I'm going to give you some tips and tricks. I'm going to show you how to use AI and ChatGPT to help you set your goals for the future and visualize them even better. And then I also want to share with you the goals that I have for the pod for 2025. It will take y'all's support for me to really achieve these goals. And so I figured, why would I not share them with you? So I want to get started by saying today, the B is for becoming the best versions of ourselves, becoming the people that we hope to be in 2025. Becoming the woman, the man, the person that you are in totality. And I'm really excited because there's a lot to come from this year, or there's a lot that's going to come from this year. And I just know that 2025 is going to be my best year yet. And I firmly stand on that. Like, I fully believe that. But that belief comes from a really hard last 5 years. And I want to be really transparent and honest about how difficult the last 5 years have really been, but how difficult 2024 was for me. Because I feel like we see people on social media and online who we all share like the highlight reels of our lives, but you don't really see the behind the scenes of how hard things actually are, how much work it actually took, how much time, dedication, effort, how many obstacles people had to overcome to get to the spaces that they're in, to reach the goals that you're seeing on social media. So to me, I just felt it was really important to actually share the honest reality of what last year was like for me. And so I actually was really intentional about this episode. I took time to reflect a few days ago and set my goals for myself for 2025, and also wrote down and spent time writing down all the things that happened in 2024, things that were positive, things that were difficult. That way I can not only like reflect on it for myself, but then also share it in a way that shows you that if you are going through a hard time, if things are not easy right now, I promise you they will work out. Everything works out. As long as you believe, as long as you keep the faith, as long as you keep pushing and keep going and keep trying, things will work out. I promise you. Thank you for listening today. I'm really excited to talk about this, but I also am a little bit like nervous right now because this is just like new. This type of like this just feels really intimate to me, honestly. So I'm a little nervous, but I'm going to walk you through the reality of what 2024 was for me. So going into 2024, I went through a lot. I went through a breakup at the beginning of the year, one that ultimately was my decision, one that was the right decision, but it was also one of the hardest decisions. Being that this wasn't the type of breakup where it got really tumultuous and toxic, and so it just made perfect sense to leave. It was actually the opposite. It was a good relationship with a good person, but ultimately not my person. And I think it's so hard to walk away in situations like that because it is comfortable, or it does feel like, well, there's nothing wrong. So why would I end this relationship if nothing's quote unquote wrong? If we're not fighting, if there are no issues. But the reality is we just I found that we were actually pretty incompatible. And I think the things that I wanted out of life and the things that I valued were pretty different than him. And it made the decision even harder because I knew that it wasn't right, but it also wasn't wrong. And so started off the new year, fresh into the new year with a breakup. Even though it was the right choice and I knew I was making the right decision, doesn't change the fact that it's hard. Like, it's super hard. It was a really hard decision. It was the right decision, but it was really hard. And so that's just fresh off the new year. I mean, we're talking January, February, breakup, boom. I'm like, okay. So that's one way to start this year. Following that was just my job. I knew 2024 was going to be a hard year business wise. I just didn't realize how hard it would be. And it got hard. It was an uphill battle. I watched my clientele dwindle. I watched the amount of buyers of the consulting that I was doing fade, and literally watched dollars go out the door because of loss of funding, because of the state of the economy, because of the state of social and political climates. And it was a rough year. Being a consultant, working in leadership, DEI, and culture consulting is not easy, as is. And then on top of that, the year that 2024 was, it was an uphill battle. And like I said, I knew it was going to be tough, but I didn't realize how tough it would really be. And so, I'm fresh off a breakup. I'm not seeing success early on in the year and preparing for what that's going to look like long term. And I'm seeing my clientele, like I said, dwindle down. I went from, I made like one quarter, maybe one fifth in revenue this year than I did the 2 years prior, and worked with about a third of the clients that I originally worked with. And so it was just a tough year. Like, business wise, I was really stressed and really nervous all year about what business was going to look like. And it was a tough year. Not only was I shifting my life personally, like being single again, but then also not having the same level of stability work wise. And then it ultimately led to having financial stress. And so there's a lot of things that I had to cut back on. And I'm someone who's fully taking care of myself for the last like decade. And so I was looking at, my mortgage and my bills like anybody else, especially during a rough year, economic year in general. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like there's things I have to cut back, which, if you know me, like I work so hard and I've worked to make a good living because there's a lifestyle that I want to have. And so cutting back was um originally just something that I was like, that's not in my vocabulary. Like, cut back, budget, where? Like, no, I just need to make more money. But the reality of this year was, as much as I was trying to make more money, I was just struggling. Like, I literally had 6 clients, 6, that I would get, when I say inches from the finish line on closing big deals with them, things would fall through. 6. So it wasn't like it was because of a lack of effort. I literally was working my ass off and I just was not seeing the outcomes that I'm used to seeing. And so it caused for me to have some financial strain and stress. And that's just the truth. And so I start cutting back. I'm like, and then I, of course, am wanting to launch a podcast. So I'm like, money has to go into that. So I'm making a lot of sacrifices. I'm taking my lashes off. I'm not doing my nails. I was doing press ons for filming days. I was like selling. When I tell you, I sold so much. I sold designer bags. I sold clothes. I sold Jordans that I had had for years that I swear I was going to keep as collectibles forever, that I just had to let go because I had to make ends meet. And as much as that feels like shameful or embarrassing to say, that is the truth. And 2024 was just tough. And so on top of that, I was really depressed. So I had spent the last few years, sad, and not realizing that like my sadness was actually depression. And I went into this year realizing how much I just was homesick. I was living in Atlanta, and as much as I have such a beautiful community out there and I love the community I've built in Atlanta, I also really miss the West Coast. I missed all my people on the West Coast. My best friends are on the West Coast. My family is on the West Coast. And I just was realizing how much I'm missing out on by being so far away from everyone. Like, holidays, I'm not seeing anybody. Birthdays, big milestones. Like, there was so much that I was missing, and it was really starting to take a toll on me. And I was someone who always prioritized my career above everything. And this year was the big realization of like, okay, I need to prioritize my mental health because I can't have a good career if I'm not doing well personally. And so I had this big realization of like, okay, I think I need to go back home, even though it meant sacrificing the proximity that I have to a lot of leaders and a lot of people who can get me to the next step and level in my career. Even though it meant leaving headquarters where I have a ton of good relationships that I can leverage to help me grow, I still realized that I needed to make this switch, and deciding to do that almost felt like I was giving up for a second. Like it felt like I was taking steps back. I'm like, I'm cutting back financially. Business isn't going well. I'm single again. I'm in this place where I'm debating like moving back to the West Coast. It just felt like I was failing. Like it felt like I was failing at everything. And it was really hard. And on top of that, in that, I decided, okay, I'm going to move back west. Thank God that I had the job flexibility that I do to where I was able to move, but it didn't come easily. I then had to swallow my pride and sell what I thought was my dream condo, what I thought was my dream penthouse lifestyle with floor to ceiling windows overlooking the entire city of Atlanta, just like on my boss woman shit. And I felt like I was failing. I felt like, okay, this is everything I've ever wanted, and I'm still not where I actually want to be. Like, the idea of like having this place and having this be my home and working so hard to get here, I felt like I was failing once again because I'm sitting there saying, okay, well, I need to sell this house. And this house that I worked so hard for, this house that felt like my pride and joy, this house that like was a stamp of independence and evolving for me. And in reality, I was like, yeah, this house is beautiful and like it represents so much for me and it's a milestone in my success, but like I'm going to sleep alone every night. I'm not seeing my family and I'm staying in this house sad, crying all the time. Like this isn't a home, this is just a house that overlooks the city. And so I also had to take a huge step back and be like, okay, as much as this is a gut punch and as much as this is bruising my pride, I need to make the decision to put my house on the market. And as many of you know, and if you don't, the housing market in 2024 was brutal, absolutely brutal. And so I listed my house in March. My house was on the market for 6 months and it was under the closing process. So if you don't know, when you get an offer on your home and you decide to accept it, you go under contract. That's what it's called. And the contract duration time period is about a month. So from when you accept the offer to when the offer officially goes through, paperwork is signed, cash is in hand, it takes about a month. And during that month is when you do like appraisals, when you do inspections, when they come tour. Usually it takes a month. My closing process took me 3.5 months. Okay. So for the first 3 months of my house being on the market, I had to leave my home every morning when I head to work in tip top pristine shape. Like, because you have no idea if you're going to get a call later while I'm at work that someone wants to come see the house. And I'm not about to miss an opportunity of a buyer seeing my house in already a really dry market. So every day I am leaving my house in pristine shape. My house looked like a damn hotel every single day for months. Every single day. Like, couldn't leave a dish in the sink, couldn't leave laundry out, nothing. Because if I did, it's like, well, what if somebody came to see the house that day and I got the place looking dirty? So not only am I living in this like extreme state of like, I can't just like relax sometimes, I'm also just like always stressed because I'm trying to make sure that everything's together when in reality, I don't feel together. And so that was really tough. Then I get an offer. I'm so excited. House goes under contract. And the week before we're supposed to close, I came out to Vegas. I looked at the new place that I was getting with my sister, with Natalia, and we put a deposit down. We start to sign things. We're really excited. I get on a plane to come back to Atlanta to tie everything up, make sure everything's good before we officially get the move going. And I get a call as I'm boarding the flight from my realtor saying, we don't think that this deal is going to go through. Like, it's looking like it's dead in the water. Literally verbatim, they're saying this. And I'm like, I literally just put a deposit down on a new house. I put a deposit down on movers. My house is in boxes. Like, what do you mean this isn't going to go through? So I'm like, when I tell you panic mode, because it's one thing to like just move down the street, it's another thing to move all the way across the country. The amount of arrangements that you have to have in place and planning that it takes, I'm like, because I had called my homeowner's insurance, I had called my utilities, I had called my Wi-Fi and set up the dates that all my services needed like be canceled and turned off. I was Oh my God. It was just, I had to tell the movers that they had to switch and move and whatever. And that wasn't even the start of it. It, our contract had to get amended. So, meaning we had to push out the closing date 8 times. 8. Okay. My realtors literally said in their 20 years of real estate experience, my situation selling my place was top 3 craziest processes they've ever been through. Like, they were to a point where my realtors were feeling so bad for me because they were like, we cannot believe this is happening to you. At one point, we had the closing date set up. We felt confident in it. Things were looking good. The night before, I had the movers come. They're carrying boxes. They're starting to wrap up my furniture. And I get an email at 5 p.m. saying, hey, we're not going to close tomorrow. A lawsuit just came in. Someone's suing your HOA. And because of that suit, even though it has nothing to do with you and the buyer, it's impacting the whole loan process, which is a whole other story and like a lot of details I don't need to get into. But I literally am looking at movers with all my stuff in their hands. And I'm like, actually, can you put that down? Because I'm not moving tomorrow. I don't know when I'm moving. I don't know when to tell you to come back. But I just know that I'm not closing tomorrow. So y'all got to put my stuff down. And I'm so embarrassed. I'm mortified. I'm like, these poor guys just came all the way out here, etc. I lost my deposit because, of course, they spent their time, energy, resources to come. So the closing process is a nightmare. And I am sitting there every day, literally every single day for 3.5 months, waiting for an update. Do we think we're going to be able to close tomorrow? What about the next day? What about next week? Do we think this is even going to happen at all? Like, we're like continuously going through this pattern, this loop. And I was in limbo. Like, I was literally, my life was in absolute limbo for 6 months where I'm like, I don't know if I should make an appointment next week here in Atlanta because I might be moving next week. My life was just like that for a minute. And it truly taught me so much about patience, resilience, but oh my God, I was on the verge multiple times of crashing out. Like, I have never been tested in that way in my life. Like, I was going to crash out. So that was hard. Plus, I'm moving across the country for the 4th time. This is my 4th time moving across the US from coast to coast. So I'm already just feeling like the weight of all this on top of everything else that I just said. Then add on top of that, in the middle of all that was the 10-year anniversary of my brother's passing. And for whatever reason, it hit me the hardest last year than it's probably like ever hit me. Like, it hit me hard. And I think it was just, granted, the circumstances that I was in and how high stress everything was, but it broke me down. It broke me down. Like, it was a really hard grieving year, season for me in a lot of ways. And then on top of that, I have had a no contact situation with my father. And over the last year is when I honestly struggled with it the most. The first few years, there was a lot of like pain and resentment a bit. And so it was easier to kind of like push off to the side. But in 2024, with a lot of my own personal realizations and growth, there was just a lot of emotions that came up about that relationship. He also tried reaching out, which caused a lot more like just stress and pain and anxiety, and yeah, it was just a really hard thing for me to navigate. And so 2024, in almost every avenue, kicked my ass. Financially, personally, career-wise, family/relationships. It was a tough year in every category. Except it's the one year that I actually stayed consistent in working out, etc. But that is because it literally kept me sane. Like my workout routine and me moving my body with intention was the only thing that like kept me sane throughout 2024. Well, that and my support system, because I have a really good support system. So 2024, if it kicked your ass, it kicked mine too. Okay? Like I don't want people to see the things that I accomplished in 2024 and be like, oh my gosh, she had like such a great year. I did have a great year. And I also had a really tough year. I had a great year, but I also had a really challenging year. I had a great year, but I also had a year full of adversity. And so you can look at all the positives of this year, which I'm about to, or of 2024, which I'm about to get to in a second, and only see those things, but you don't see what it took to get there. And so I want you to know that if you are feeling like things are hard, if you are feeling like all the odds are stacked against you, if you are feeling like it is getting sticky, it is getting tough, it is a rough season, I want you to know things get so hard before they get better. It's like when you're climbing a mountain, the closer you get to the summit, the steeper it gets. And I knew that I was on the brink of something really big for me. And I knew that I was on the brink of leveling up. But I had to go through the mud before I got to this point. And I still am recovering from some of those things. But just know that if things are really hard right now, I promise you, if you stay the course, if you keep trying, if you keep the faith, things will get better. There are really good things on the other side of this for you. And I'm telling you that from experience, because I did not even see myself getting to 2025. I couldn't even picture what the future was going to look like, because at one point I was so low. I really thought I was failing. I really thought that I wasn't going to give up, because that's just not even in my spirit. That's not even how I'm built. But when I tell you, there were moments where I was like, I really don't know how this is going to work. I genuinely do not know how I'm going to make this work. Like, I was struggling. And so I want you to know now, coming out of it, you will be okay. You will be okay. You just have to keep the faith. Like, you have to keep pushing. You have to believe that there is something good for you on the other side of this. You have to believe that the hard things that you are going through are preparing you for a more successful, better, more loved, more enlightened version of yourself. You have to believe it. And thankfully, that belief system remains. And thankfully, God aligned me with my purpose and divinely guided me to the point that I am at right now. And I think a lot of that divine guidance was through adversity. And so now I want to tell you all the good things that came out of 2024. I started this podcast. First and foremost, I started this podcast after it was a dream, after it was an idea, after it was a thrown around topic, after it was a suggestion from friends, from people. I did it. once I decided that I was going to do it, I did it. And I know that it was not easy. It is a huge financial investment. It is a huge time investment. Like when I tell you, y'all see the snippets, you see the things, but like the amount of money that I have put into this podcast, the amount of hours that I spend editing a week when I already have a 9 to 5, I'm spending 30 hours a week at least editing and working on the pod. And that's not even including marketing. That's not including PR. That's not including all the other efforts that I have to make for this to actually get off the ground. Like 30 hours a week just editing. It is a full-time job, and I'm doing it on top of having a full-time job. So don't think that just because something is beautiful and looks good and presents well on the outside, that it doesn't require a shit ton of hard work on the back end. So, but a beautiful thing that came out of 2024 was all of this pivoting, all of this shifting, all of this like realignment aligned me closer to my purpose, which is to use my voice and do something like this, something that I'm passionate about, something that I enjoy, something that feels very aligned and connected to who I am on a spiritual level, on a personal level, everything. And so loved that is like one of the biggest highlights that came out of 2024 is being able to start this and pour into it. But there's also other really beautiful things that came out of 2024. I met a community of women that truly helped me heal, helped me learn, helped me expand my horizons, helped me think about things in ways that I hadn't before, allowed for me to be my authentic self in a room with them, share ideas. And that was all through something that B. Simone put together for me and a group of other women to really build community amongst one another. And I'm so excited for what's going to come with that. So I said this in my last episode or 2 episodes ago, and I'll say it again. Go follow the LTTA app on Instagram because there's going to be some really powerful things coming. But that community and going through that journey with them and going through the process and filming 4 seasons of a show together really healed me. It enlightened me. It truly was a community that I didn't know that I needed, that I got. And I'm so thankful for the impact that had on me this year. I became a godmom again for the second time. I have 2 god babies now. My first godson, his name is Beckham. He turned 1 this year, which was like huge for me. I got to spend time with him. He calls me auntie now. He says, I love you on the phone to me. Like I'm watching him become this incredible little boy who has such a good, fun, loving personality. And I'm closer to him now, and it just makes me so happy that I am. And then my other best friend, Barb, had her daughter, 7, in October and made me the godmother of her daughter. And I went to her christening and got a certificate that says that I am her godmother. And it is just like the best feeling in the world to be trusted by your best friends with their child. Like if anything happens to these 2 little babies' parents, if anything happens to my best friends, God forbid, it is my duty and responsibility to make sure that these babies are taken care of. And I just feel so honored to have that opportunity. And I held 7 for the first time a few months ago and met her, and she immediately just like lit up and like smiled at me, and just like it's almost like she knew me, like she recognized my voice or she recognized my spirit. And like there's just something so dope about that bond, and I'm so fortunate that I got that this year. And it truly just was a highlight of this year for me, even amongst all the chaos. Like it was a highlight. I sold my home. I finally sold my home after the whole process. When everything was said and done, I sold my home and I made a profit. So it was hell. It taught me so much, but it ended up working out. And I literally prayed about this outcome so many times. And the fact that I am sitting in an answered prayer right now is a blessing. Like, I still like look around me and see this new home that I'm sitting in, this home that I prayed for, this home that actually feels like a home. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, every hard thing that I went through in 2024 paid off. All the prayers paid off. Keeping the faith paid off. Not giving up paid off. It was so hard, but it paid off. And then, on top of all this, amongst all the chaos, my therapist told me I graduated. So I had been working with my therapist for like 2 years. And prior to that, I was working with another therapist for 2 years. And my therapist sat me down towards the end of this year and she was like, girl, you have healed so much. You are so self-aware. You know what triggers you. You know how to manage it. Like, you don't need me anymore. Like, and granted, like, we were coming up on the end of the year anyways, and, you know, I was moving and whatnot, but she was like, I really just don't feel like you're in a place where you need therapy right now. And like, there was a point in time where I literally thought I would not be able to live without a therapist. Like, I was like, it's always something. And like, I need someone to lean on. But through all the adversity that I faced this year, for my therapist to tell me, which my therapists don't play. And if she's watching this podcast, girl, love you. For real. Love you and mean it. For real. When she sat there and told me, like, oh, you don't need me in this stage of life, I was like, are you sure? Like, what do you mean I don't need you? Like, are you sure? Because it's felt like this last year I wouldn't have survived if I didn't have you. And she was like, no, I really think that you are in a good place. Like, I really don't think you need therapy right now. And just the fact, and then she literally looks at me and she goes, congratulations, you've graduated. And like, that feeling for me was so indescribable because I was like, oh my gosh, not only have I gone through like some of the hardest things, but it was almost like proof that I was strong enough to get through it and that I'm strong enough to stand on my own too. And that all the hard work that I've put in therapy has actually paid off. And so that was a huge win for me in 2024 to feel like, wow, I've evolved enough. I've healed enough to where like I don't need to go to therapy all the time. Also in 2024, I turned 28 and I had honestly the most wholesome, beautiful birthday. My sister, Natalia, who's my best friend, and you all will see her on episodes very soon. I call her my sister because best friend just does not describe our relationship well enough. Like, she truly feels like my sister. She just like set up this beautiful day for me, and I just felt so loved, and I felt like I was in such good company and supported and loved by the right people. And so 28 just felt like a really big birthday for me in like the smallest of ways, like just making it there and celebrating life and feeling like my frontal lobe fully develops. I feel like my frontal lobe actually develops because the level of like self-awareness, understanding that I have now just feels like so much of it came in this last year of life for me. So my 28th birthday was so dope. And to round out the year, the last thing that I wanted to make sure that I did was reconnect with my father. And I did that. And him and I talked for the first time in like 5 years. And I genuinely feel like we broke generational curses. Like conversations that he probably, or that he never had with his dad, that his dad never had with his dad. I was able to have such a mature, loving, thoughtful, remarkable conversation with my father after years of not talking, years of misalignment, and truthfully, years of misunderstanding. We were both able to come into a conversation with pure intentions, the right heart posture, and reconnect in a really profound way. And I am so thankful for the opportunity to have a relationship with my dad again. I'm very thankful that I'm able to have a relationship with my dad again. And that is something beautiful that came out of 2024 that I'm excited to nurture and rebuild and grow in 2025. And so that is something that I honestly did not know. I didn't know if it would ever happen. I didn't know how we would reconcile it. I didn't know what steps to take. I didn't know what was my responsibility. I didn't know what was his responsibility. And the fact that I have that again, every girl, the little girl in me needed to reconnect with her dad, and she did. And I healed that part of her. And I'm really thankful for it. And I'm really excited to like have a relationship with him again. So 2024 was definitely a year. It had its lows and it had its highs. And I just want you to know that if there's things that you think can't be done, if there's things that you think are too hard, if there's things that you think can't be done, they can. They can. It's never too late. It's never the wrong time. I believe that there is better and worse timing for things, but I don't believe there's right and wrong time. There will never be 100% the right time for you to do something. There's better times for you to do something. There's worse times for you to do something. Like selling a house in 2024, there's better times to sell a house, okay? I'm not saying that, everything is the right timing, but I do think that if you're waiting to be ready, to be 100% ready, you will be waiting forever. You will be waiting forever. And so all the challenges that I faced, I know that not only have I like overcome them or am actively overcoming them, I am going to turn them into wins in 2025. Mark my words. Every single hard thing that I faced last year are the stepping stones, brick by brick, the foundation for the success that I am going to have in 2025. Mark my words. And the same can happen for you. And so I wanted to share my story because it's my testimony. It's my truth. If it weren't for me, my faith, and God, I and my support system and the vision that I knew and fully believed in my spirit, in my gut, that God showed me, that God divinely guided me through, I honestly don't know how I would have gotten through this year, but I did. And I'm going to use every lesson from 2024 to propel me and lead me to success in 2025. And so this is going to be my best year yet. Okay? It just is. I don't care what you got to say about it. I know for a fact this is going to be the best year of my life so far. I know it is. And I'm so excited to go on this journey with y'all. And so I want to give you tools to set up your goals for 2025 because I am a woman of intention. I always have been. I always will be. That is one of the words that I've always used to describe myself. I am intentional. And so I've created a vision board for myself for the last 6 years, going into every year. But this year I was extremely intentional about the goals that I set for myself, what categories I'm setting them in, and then how I actually am going to achieve those goals. And I want to share it with you. If you already set your goals, you can deepen your intention behind those goals through some of this. If you haven't set your goals yet, perfect timing. It's not too late. You can set them. And if you are like, yeah, I had some goals, but I haven't put a ton of structure around it, well, I'm about to give you the structure that you can use to really be intentional about your year this year. So there are 5 areas that I want you to create goals for. First being personal. What are your personal goals that you want to achieve this year? Second is career and business. So, what goals do you have for your career or for your business that you want to achieve in 2025? Third is financial. What financial goals do you have for yourself that you want to achieve this year? Fourth is health and wellness. So, what do you want to do to take care of your mind, your body, your spirit? Whatever that may be, put that in the health and wellness bucket. And then fifth is relationships. Where do you want the relationships in your life to be this year? How do you want to show up in them? What are your intentions? Okay. So those are your 5. Ready? Recap: personal, career and business, financial, health and wellness, relationships. Those are your 5. In each of those, I want you to pick a goal or pick a couple. I want you to outline the actions that you will take to achieve those goals. And then underneath the actions, I want you to write your tracking methods. So, how you're actually going to track the actions that you take to make sure that you are making strides on achieving these goals. And so, I'll give you an example for one of mine. One of my personal goals, I have a couple, but one of my personal goals is I want to get my life coach certification in 2025. I want to be able to say I'm a certified life coach. It is something my dad actually is. He's a life coach. And I feel like I spend so much time talking to you all. It will just allow for me to take this to the next level and actually feel like I can give people advice, feel like I was taught effectively, that I have good education behind what I'm doing. So my goal is to be a life coach in 2025. Action steps is to sign up for a certification program, pay for it, and go through the entire program, take the test, and get my certification. The ways that I'm tracking that goal is I have to purchase the certification by a date in February. I have to start the certification by a date in March, and I have to finish the certification by a date in December. So I set on my calendar exact days that I want to have certain milestones done to make sure I'm staying on top of achieving this goal. It's almost like saying, oh, I want this perfect cake. I have the ingredients, but I don't have the recipe. And it's like, okay, you know what it takes, you know what you want, but you don't know how to put it together. That your goals should not be that way. Like, you need to create the recipe. You know what it takes. You need to create how you are going to do it. That way you can get the beautiful outcome of the cake down the road and you can eat it too. You know? So I want you to say for each goal, action steps, and ways that you're going to track it. Then I'm going to do you one better. I want you to copy and paste all of it and put it in ChatGPT. And I want you to ask ChatGPT, this is what I did, for mantras, I am statements, affirmations that align to the goals that you're trying to reach that you can say every morning and every evening for the rest of the year. I have 5 affirmations that I can say every morning and every evening for the rest of 2025, and each one aligns to my goals: personal, career, financial, relationships, health, and wellness. And it literally gave me I am statements. I'll read one of them to you. For my personal affirmation, to give you an example, I am grateful for the opportunity to learn every day. It excites me to expand my mind and embrace challenges. I say that every morning and every night for the rest of 2025 until it literally becomes my reality. So make mantras for yourself, put it in ChatGPT, and then take it a step further. Take it a step further. So now that you've put it in ChatGPT and you have your mantras, I want you to ask ChatGPT, based on the goals that you've presented to it, what will your life look like in 1 year when you've accomplished these goals? And see what ChatGPT tells you. AI is such a beautiful thing. If it is so hard, because to me, I have a hard time like conceptualizing and visualizing things for the future. I just like struggle with that. And so having it tell me what my life will look like, I'm like, are you kidding? So, same example that I gave you of the life coach, of the mantra, now following that same category, it told me your dedication to learning and stepping outside your comfort zone will increase and boost your confidence, improves your ability to set and achieve ambitious personal goals. You are officially a certified life coach, positioning yourself as a credible authority ready to inspire and empower others. These achievements symbolize your commitment to growth and discipline. Like being able to read it in future state or like present state of like, I am a certified life coach. I am confident. It helped me achieve my goals. It helped with my commitment to my growth. It made me a reputable voice. Like hearing it in that way, to be honest, fires me up. Like I'm like, okay, I'm ready to do it. Let's get it. I'm about to print this and literally put it in my room so I can see every day what it's going to look like when I actually achieve these goals. So I had to share this with y'all because I just think that it is so dope to be able to actually see where your goals can take you. And reading them in that way just makes you that much more excited to get after the goals that you set for yourself. And it takes discipline. And speaking of discipline, my 2 words for 2025 are discipline and abundance. I believe that this is going to be the most disciplined I've ever been in my life. I'm already doing dry January. I have been working out for a few weeks prior to the new year starting to really make sure that I'm in a groove and ready for the new year and focusing on my mind, my body, my spirit. And I also believe that I am going to step into a year of abundance this year in every way, not just financial abundance, although I will step into financial abundance. I'm manifesting that now, and that's something I've been praying for. But I also mean in the sense of abundance in spirit, abundance in faith, abundance in community, abundance in love, abundance in joy, abundance in positivity, abundance in support. Like I know that I'm going to have a very abundant year because of the relationships that I've built, because of the goals I set out for myself, because of the seeds that I planted years ago that I feel like are sprouting now. And so give yourself like a word or 2 or 3 for the year, not too many because you don't want to like overload yourself with things that you have to achieve, but give yourself a few words that will be like your cornerstone. They'll be the markers for you. They'll be your North Star every time that you are doing something or making a decision. It's like, okay, is this aligned with discipline and abundance? Is this aligned with growth and prosperity? Is this aligned with whatever your word is? Pick one and then put it everywhere. Put it in your house, put it in your phone, make it your wallpaper, whatever it is, but fully commit to it. Fully commit to it. So my words are discipline and abundance. And I know that that's something that I'm going to experience this year. And I'm so excited for it. And I'm excited to share it with y'all. And on that note, I just want to say sincerely from the bottom of my heart, thank you. If you are watching this, if you are listening to it, thank you. Thank you for supporting me because your support is what kept me going in 2024. For my friends who knew about everything that I was going through and held it down for me and checked on me and made sure that I was okay and supported me in every way possible, I love you. Thank you. You deserve all your flowers. And I promise you, when this takes off, I will give you all the love that you gave me back tenfold. To my supporters who you don't even know me and you sit here and you watch this and you listen to this, thank you. Like, sincerely, thank you. I am so grateful for you. I am so grateful that we are able to get connected. I'm so grateful that you see something or hear something in these dialogues that you can relate to. And for all the people who have reached out to me, all your DMs, I don't share all of them because they're so personal to me, but I screenshot and keep everything in a folder. Any kind word that you've ever said to me, anything that's ever been supportive, anything that you've ever poured love into me, or you've given me feedback, whatever it may be, I literally have a folder in my phone of everything that everyone has ever said. And I save it for rainy days. I save it for the days that things are hard. I look at it when I just need motivation. And you all really and truly, and I swear to you, I mean this, you all kept me going. In 2024 and going into this year, you all kept me going. And so thank you if you have poured into me. I promise you, I will do whatever I can to pour back into you. And I hope that this episode allows for you to feel poured into. And I want to tell you some of my goals for this podcast because it's important to me. And you all are a major part of how these goals are going to come to fruition. The first and most important goal for me is to spread love and positivity no matter what. I want my impact to be one of love. I want my impact to be one of positivity. I want it to be fruitful. I want to leave things better than I found them. And so that will always be my goal, and that will always be my intention with this podcast. You'll see in my Instagram bio and even in my pod intro, I have con amor, which means with love. And I literally try to do everything in my life with love. Everything with love. Love is like the universal language that I live by and everyone understands. And so I want to pour love into every single person that I ever interact with in some way, shape, or form. And so that is what I want to give you is love, positivity, enlightenment, support. And second goal is community. I want to build and have such a positive, loving, uplifting, tight-knit, close community. I want to feel like my listeners are my friends. I want my listeners to feel like I'm your friend. I want to have you feel more connected to the people in your life through sharing and talking about this podcast, or even things that you heard in this podcast without even giving me credit for it. If there is one small thing that I said today that you can tell a friend and you two can bond over that, or you can tell your parent and you two can bond over that, or you can reconnect with a parent that you haven't had a relationship with because of me sharing my story, that is literally all I want. That creates community. That creates a sense of love and connection with people. Community is like my biggest priority. And so all I ask is that as a listener, as a supporter, as a friend, that you help me build this community. It is so important to me. It is so aligned with my purpose. It is something that I truly have a calling to do. And I'm so thankful that you're a part of this community just by listening. But take it even a step further and share it with others. Share with me your feedback, what you like, what you don't like. Like, I want this to feel so tight knit. And I am determined to feel like I have a strong community, especially this year in 2025. So that's my second goal. My third goal is to take brave bets. I'm always going to bet on myself. I want you to always bet on yourself. And I want to just be brave in the way that I approach this podcast and the topics that I cover and the ideologies that I have, in the opinions that I share. I want to be brave. And today I was like, I'm going to be brave and I'm going to set up this one camera and I'm going to do it completely different than how I've ever released any other episode because it just feels right to me and that's the way that I want to do it. And that was a brave bet. And so I hope it pays off. I hope you enjoy this. I hope that you aren't disappointed that it isn't like the multiple camera angles and like me from far away. You just get a close-up shot today. But I do hope that you really enjoy it and that you can appreciate the brave bets. And that's always going to be a goal for me in general. But specifically for 2025 in this podcast, brave bets is my third goal. Again, spreading love and positivity, creating community, and taking brave bets are my three goals for the pod for 2025. And I would love your support in doing that. So, that being said, If there is anything that you've gained from this episode, if there's anything you've gained from me ever, if there's even a small snippet of something from a previous episode or your interaction with me in this podcast, I ask only one thing of you. Please share it with one person. Think of one person in your life who could use the information that you gained, who needs a level of community, who honestly you just want to reach out to and have an excuse to reach out to them, whatever it may be. Please, one person, share this with them. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you so much more than you know. Happy New Year. Happy 2025. Make this year your best yet. You have all the ability in the world to do so. Reach out to me. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm always here, but I'm so thankful for you. I'm so excited to build this community with you. And I know that you are just at the beginning of a very, very good year for yourself. So the B is for becoming this week, becoming the best versions of ourselves. And I am so excited for what's in store for us in 2025. Thank you for tuning in. Thanks for doing this in the non-orthodox way. And I'm so excited to see y'all next week. Bye.